You know why you're here. You probably know what Frindle is. And if you know what Frindle is, then you for sure know that it is probably a 3rd grade reading level book. Ladies and gentlemen, today I have made a slideshow dedicated to explaining why I think that the book Frindle by one Andrew Clements is in fact a literary masterpiece. By the way, follow me on Twitch, twitch.tv/Jedwerd_. Follow me on Twitter, @Jedwerd_, and subscribe right now. Scroll down. And then let's get started. Let me give a brief summary of the book first. Basically, a boy, Nick, invents a new word for a pen called a Frindle. So he goes around and he would say, I have a Frindle here. This is a Frindle I'm holding. I write with my Frindle. The main reason he picks up is because the teacher, Miss Granger, tells him that he can't use it, that it's banned, that it's disgrace to the English language. And eventually, long story short, it becomes a nationwide phenomenon and Frindle is added to the dictionary and everyone is using it. And I think the first reason that this story is exceptional is because it's believable. People love something different and new, going against the status quo, changing things up. We've lived through this before. This happens all the time. Everyone has teachers that they don't like or that are unreasonable for seemingly no reason. The main premise of this book is that this teacher, Miss Granger, is a jerk. She has a reputation around the school. Everyone in the 5th grade hates her. And it makes sense that people reading this book, who, by the way, this book is geared towards school children mainly, it makes sense that the audience would agree with this. When they see Miss Granger, they think, oh, that's Miss Jenny, that's Miss April. They have a teacher that's exactly like Miss Granger. So in that sense, people can relate on that level. Frindle has a life of its own. In the book, there's a point where Nick says that he would stop Frindle because it's spreading so rapidly. He would stop people from saying Frindle if he had the ability to, but he simply does not have the ability. And this is believable because I'm sure this happens all the time. I'm sure the guy who invented sheesh is sick of hearing it because his school friends or his IRL friends, if he's not in school, I don't know anything about him, go up to him all the time now and say sheesh, and he's sick of it. So it makes sense that he would get sick of it because that's what happens. People get sick of things. People try to scam Nick out of his own due profits. Yes, there's a salesman named Bud who comes over to Nick and tries to get his father to sell the shares of the product, of the merch he's gonna make, of the branded t-shirts, pens, whatever, or sell them. And the father does not really understand this, but he has enough sense to say that Nick gets a share. So, even though it didn't work, he tried to scam Nick out of his due profits, which happens all the time in life. We all know what scammers are and how scammers work. Miss Granger was actually on his side. Everyone knows that the best way to get a child to do something you want them to do is to tell them to not do it. Reverse psychology, tried and true. It's happened to all of us. Works on everyone at some point in their life. And as very evident, it worked on Nick. Step 2 is that there are high stakes in this book. First of all, fame and fortune are a huge burden to a lot of people. We hear about celebrities, YouTubers, influencers in general talking about how the anxiety and the pressure of having to appeal to an audience of sometimes millions gets them down and really drags them into the dirt. And that is evident here. Nick is a celebrity in a sense because everyone knows that he is the guy who invented the word Frindle. Plus, given the merchandise and the marketing and the fact that he invented the word, he is incredibly wealthy at a young age. And that is a lot to handle. And that's one of the stakes of the book because I think everyone knows deep down that even though they want to be famous or like have super wealthy, it'll be a lot to handle. Like it'll be a lot to take in. There is a huge potential that they get scammed. Nick is a young kid. And people like to scam people who don't know any better. So there's an enormous potential that Nick will get scammed and lose tons of money and a lot of profit. And finally, Nick loses his sense of self. This is a recurring problem that we see in society, in literature, in movies, and anywhere you look, we see that people are worried and scared of losing their sense of self, of losing who they really are. In the beginning of the book, we see Nick as this class clown joker who does what he wants, whatever he wants. He tries to make people laugh, he tries to be witty, tries to get out of homework. By the end of the book, he's quiet, subdued. He now realizes what impact he can have and doesn't want it to happen again. So I think this is a major part of the stakes, and it actually happens and then re-happens. So he goes from himself to loses his sense of self back to himself. Next, we have plot progression. Nick starts off as an ordinary kid in school. And one day, he gets an assignment from his teacher, Miss Granger, on why words are what they are, why society accepts words. And he does it, but in his mind, he's like, what if I can change this? What if I can rewrite history and completely change the word pen into the word Frindle? He has an idea, and he has a plan, and he executes on it. First, he goes to a lady in like a stand and buys a pen, but instead of a pen, he calls it a Frindle. He goes back day after day, and after a week, doesn't even hesitate. She just gives him the pen when he says Frindle. Afterwards, he moves on to his friends, his peers, and gets them to say Frindle. His teachers and principal don't like it because they like English. And it starts off mainly when Miss Granger doesn't like it, and it kind of spreads to the rest of the teachers because they're just supporting Miss Granger. And eventually it becomes such a big deal that the principal goes to the parents and says that this word is very disrespectful, that that kids are going to suspension or detention for it. So facing opposition is always a crucial part in the journey. The word catches on that Frindle is now the hot stuff around first the school, then the town, then the county, state, country, and eventually the world, and he's launched into fame and fortune. Finally, the enemy was actually on his side and recognized that the only way to help Nick was to act like she disapproved. She tries to convince him that he should not say this word, that this is a disgrace to the English language, anyone who says the word detention. At the end of the book, we actually see Miss Granger sending him a letter that he signed back in 5th grade, because he's in college at this point, saying that the word is now caught on, and that all along she wanted to support him, but she realized that this is what she needed to do. We go from an ordinary kid, fame and fortune, popularity, riches, loses sense of self, realizes all along that he never had to, and is now very successful. And finally, the last point that makes Frindle a literary masterpiece is relatability. This could literally happen to anyone. I could go to school tomorrow and bring this LED light, and say, this is an LED light, this is a Gouda, and now this is a Gouda. An LED light panel is a Gouda, and it could catch on. Every single thing that happens is exactly how it would happen in real life. It makes sense. It catches on to a couple people like it. It catches on to the school, it becomes like a school trend. It catches on to the state. All of a sudden the state's saying it, finally becomes a countrywide thing, and eventually a global thing. And then from there, you have people who oppose it, you have people struggling with fame and fortune. I think that's exactly how it would go in real life. The problems that Nick experiences after Frindle takes off are exactly how celebrities and other people in the spotlight describe their lives. We hear from influencers today, from years ago, that when they're in the spotlight, they feel intense anxiety and pressure. They have millions of fans to appeal, they have thousands of millions of views on every single thing they post online, and it gets to them. It's a lot of pressure, it's a lot of stress, and they say they feel it deeply. And that's why a lot of them end up killing themselves, or retiring early, or overdosing. And finally, like I said back in Believability, this is actually vaguely realistic. This is actually the kind of thing where 2 years from now, we could be in school, and we could hear some kids say, Gouda. And we'd be like, what's a Gouda? Some of us would instantly start saying it. Some of us would instantly go along with it. And some of us would be a little more hesitant. But eventually, people would start saying it. And it'd be a trend. And sure, maybe it'd die off in a couple years. Maybe people would stop saying it. These 4 slides are why I believe that Frindle is a literary masterpiece. Yes, it's a 5th grade reading level book. Yes, it does not have any symbolism. Yes, there's no imagery. Yes, there's no metaphors. But those things aren't necessary. That is why Frindle is a literary masterpiece. Thank you for your time.